now we can see a new world coming into view. A world in which there is a very real prospect of a new world order. The new world order does not mean surrendering our national sovereignty or forfeiting our interests.
And if you buy that, I got a bridge for you in Arizona.
He took an oath to defend the Constitution of the United States of America. By some, he's been called controversial. How can I convince you what you really do here? You're turning the hard way from me each time that I draw near. You're a hypocrite to me, so I can say that the way is clear. Now, keep in mind that some of my guys have been approached by Homeland Security. I got some two guys up there with me this morning. Go get a cup of coffee, maybe a lunch. We both took the stand not defend the Constitution against all domestic. I don't recall there being an expiration date on that. He is the free American, claimed Douglas. That's the free American, weekdays at 7 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Eastern. Every time I think about it, down and up and down, the angry winds inside me till I'm almost forgot. I was a town, now the sky is off the For the podcast and more details, visit www.freeamericans.com or catch the podcast by phone by calling 832-999-8621.
All right, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Free American Hours. I am your host. I am Clay Douglas. And my guest today is General Bobby Farrell. Known Bobby for a long time. And he's got a book out. It's right up there on my website, The Anointed, the Elect, and the Damned. And Bobby is, I believe, the founder of the Archurians. How do you pronounce that, Bobby?
Archurians.
Archurians.
A-U-A-R, Archurians.
Archurians. And your book, you say, is more powerful than the Bible, the Qur'an, the Bhagavad Gita, and a few others that I don't recognize and probably can't pronounce. You say this is exposing false prophets, doctrines of death and demonic possession of Catholicism, Christianity, Islam, Khazars, Ashkenazis, Buddhism, politicians, priests, preachers, and other liars. I couldn't have said it better myself there, Bobby. I've said I am an equal opportunity exposure of corruption, and I support the Constitution, and the Constitution gives you the right to worship any way you please. So, you want to hug trees? Well, I got a pair of tweezers here. I can loan you to pull out the splinters. You want to bang your head against that Wailing Wall, you Ashkenazis? Hey, knock yourself out, man. I'll watch. Just don't try to get me to do it. And you want to get on your hands and knees and stick your nose in the dirt and your ass up in the air? I'll be glad to, shoot the St. Bernard off if I'm around. But you want to get on your hands and knees and pray to God for a Cadillac? Hey, I'll put in a good word for you. And maybe he won't drop it on top of your fat ass.
Well, I'm the same way. If anyone will be stupid, I'll help them keep the book closed so nobody will know it. But the bottom line is, either something works or it doesn't. If you turn on an ordinary light switch in the house and the light doesn't come on, you know one of two things. First thing you know is something is wrong, of course. But you don't, at this stage, you don't know whether the electricity's off, the light bulb is burnt out, or the fuse is blown. Because if all of those are in proper and operational, the light should come on because that's the way it works. And it doesn't matter whether you believe enough in it or not. Just do it, it works. And I have challenges for all what I call a hallelujah half-wit across the board. Everything is well praised very rough, and I always say, why? Let me give you an example. Book of John, 14:12. Verily, verily, which means surely in English, I say unto you, he that believeth on me, the works that I do, shall he do also. The greater works than these shall he do, because I go to my Father. Verse 13. And whatsoever you shall ask in my name, that will I do, that the Father be glorified in the Son. 14. If you will ask anything in my name, I will do it. Okay? Challenge for the hallelujah half-wits to buy into that poppycock. Because that entire book of John is a total forgery. But if they want to believe, it's fine. But here's my challenge. I want you to go down to the nearest morgue or funeral parlor, raise any of the proven dead, or all of them for that matter, because there's no limit here. Go to any hospital. I'd prefer to start at the Veterans Hospital. Seal everybody in, clean it out. I'll buy the beer to celebrate. And if you can't do it, you have to admit that your so-called faith is as bogus as a Clinton promise.
Well, now, I just had my friend from Texas. He's the dean of Timothy Bible College, which is a good college, and you can get your degrees online studying with him. As good as anyone out there that'll charge you an arm and a leg to give you a degree that ain't worth the paper it's written on. And he believes in the Bible. He calls it his answer book. And I do believe that you got 2,000 years of history, but as I say in my, right here on my publisher's column, that we forget that it was men just like us that created all of these religions.
Yes.
And some wanted to do it. Some loved us and tried to pass on their wisdom and conclusions to us and our errors with love. Others wanted to use the words for control, enslavement, and the accumulation of riches through lies. When the brightest and best among us ran them from the temple, they were murdered, and the lies crafted to make their murderers into idols by calling them the chosen ones. Now, ask yourself why we would allow the murderers of Jesus to create a graven image of his defeated corpse hanging on a cross that they used to kill him with as a symbol of a new religion.
Well, that's really self-explanatory to anybody with more brains than a brick. You're absolutely right. If idolatry, worship of idols, is forbidden in holy law, and it is.
Yes.
Then why have all these images hanging around. Who do what? You know, just if you want, and you must have some image, any rock along the road will work as well as one that's been carved by a great artist at great expense. A piece of rock is a piece of rock.
Well,
let me... The answer is no, you can't. All of these things, well, it gets you into the spirit. Oh, really? You're talking about spirit. Throughout the Bible, it talks about those that were, quote, up in the spirit. That didn't mean on an emotional tangent, because like in Revelation, where it says that John was in the spirit, and he was showing many things that's described in the book of Revelation, and other places, where Emmanuel, through the disciples, saw Emmanuel transfigured, and he was talking to Moses and Elijah. Now these guys have been dead for a while. So how do you get up in the spirit? The AED, as we call it for short, has the exact instructions of exactly how to do it. Anybody can do it. Anybody can get into the plains of heaven or go view the depths of hell. But you can't do it with hallelujah here, singing hymn and pass the plate. Well, anymore, they got to passing the plate before they have the hymn. Hard economic times have hit the hallelujah half-wits.
Now, let's not talk about that. I've said at the Council of Nicaea, when Constantine rewrote the Bible to suit himself, I believe that they may, and I question everything, and by the way, for Captain Stealth on there, I encourage you to investigate everything I say before you do anything, before you make a donation. I tell people, don't believe anything I say. Check it out for yourself. And, you know, Bobby, let me just kind of roam around here. If Constantine and the Council of Nicaea promoted Jesus to the level of God, I think that might be because they don't want men like you and I to try to emulate the kind of man he was when he walked on this planet.
Well, that's true.
Now, if you're omniscient, let me ask you this. Here's a little quiz for you. If you are omniscient and omnipotent and you're the only one of your kind in this part of the galaxy, what are you?
You're a lord at least.
I kind of think that you might be bored to tears.
Probably.
So what do? Well, you can do anything, you can make anything, so what do? You create us, mankind, with a spark of your divinity that we call the soul, we call the conscience, we call the Akashic records, or we got a lot of names for it. And then you sit back, and since you've created us, since you are the force that holds the atoms together, that decides what these atoms are going to form by altering their vibrational rate, you sit back behind your eyes and my eyes, and he gives us free will. He gives us free will. And we've really got access. We don't need the preachers. We don't need the priests. We don't need rabbis, because we all got a direct line to what you call God.
Yes, indeed. And that free will comes with a couple of things.
Okay.
Starting with responsibility. You can't be out there blasting off incoherently, which means you've got to know what you're doing. So the responsibility comes with knowing what we're doing, and then whether to do it or not. That's ours. That's on our head the moment we got that free will factor. Now, another thing that most people do not know, will not look into, and an orangutan could figure it out in about 40 seconds, is was that the letter J did not
exist
in any language until about 1349 AD, and didn't come into common usage for about 100 years.
Well,
so when they talk about Jesus, Emmanuel never heard that word during his lifetime. Neither did anybody else. Because the letter J didn't exist till 1349. So the correct name of Emmanuel, which is his title, meaning God with us, the representative of that generation, was what we would now say was Joshua ben Joseph ben Nazareth. In that day and age, it would have been pronounced Yehoshua ben Yusuf ben Nazarati. In other words, Joshua, son of Joseph, from Nazareth. Joseph of Nazareth would be the same thing. So Emmanuel Yehoshua ben Yusuf ben Nazarati never heard Jesus at all. So they're praying in Jesus' name. Well, you better check and find out where the hell that came from. If you take it out of the Latin, Jesu Christum, which is not entirely Latin. Christum, as they call it, was actually Christos in Greek, which actually means conscious. Doesn't mean anointed, it means conscious. Jesu means I am, is when a person refers to themselves in the first person. So Jesu Christum, that's also called Jesus Christ, means I am conscious. But of what? Are they really conscious of anything other than singing hymn, Hail Mary, praise Jesus, but let's pass the plate? Or Allahu Akbar, where we can convert people with Montebello AA dynamite rather than a broadsword? What the hell are they conscious of? I submit they're conscious of nothing but demonology.
Well, now, Yeshua, or whatever you want to call him, he did try to warn us about that J word. He tried to tell you that, warn us about the Jews who say they're Jews but are not, or of the synagogue of Satan.
Yes, that's right.
And he also said, you can do what I do and more.
Yes. And how many can do it?
And what I believe he was trying to tell us is that God is inside us, and we can, if you sit down and meditate, think, pray, whatever you want to call it. I mean, people ask me, why, how come we never see you in church, Clay? I said, well, every time I walk out that door there, I'm in my church. God created this world for me.
The way I look at it.
And
I don't need some building that's hot to its eyebrows through some tax bank. I don't need that as a temple. Go outside, open your eyes, and look. The trees, the grass, the mountains, the rivers. How much better temple could you want?
That's right.
Go out at night and look up.
You know, I've been doing that. That's pretty interesting. That just came back to me when I was a kid. When I was in right before I dropped out of high school in the 9th grade, I used to go outside and walk around the neighborhood at night, looking up at the stars. I particularly liked Orion and his belt, but I felt like I came from there. I felt like I was a part of that. I felt like this whole place had been put together for me.
Or certainly as a part of, I'm a part of whatever it is.
Yes.
I had the same thing, only just from that difference. And who is to say that it wasn't created exactly that way for you? I can't argue it. I just know that I'm a part of whatever the creation was. Its intentions and what have you are very clear once you get off of the hallelujah half-wit and start paying attention to what's going on around you.
You mean, I keep saying the phrase, you're not a good Baptist if you dance.
Yeah.
it's now another thing that I'm looking into, and I actually wrote about this 45 years ago. Maybe I will publish it this year after I edit it a little bit with 45 years of research. This timeline, this history, these religions, first of all, were created by men, and I think a lot of them were created by control. Now, there were some guys out there that were trying to do the right thing and saying, oh, look, God is within you, you can do this, you can do more of what I do and more. They were trying to give us the good news. But
too many report in most cases.
Yes, and
right.
too many others were out there to try to frighten us. Be afraid. Be very, very afraid. Because what fear does is prevent you from thinking straight.
Yes, it does.
And
that's exactly what
you know, Bobby, I say I may have been kicked out of heaven 3 times because I've died, gone down that tunnel, done that thing, seen the light, and somebody said, get back in that body. Your work ain't done yet. Get back in that body. So why should we be afraid of death? It ain't no big thing. It happens to everybody. You never get out of this world alive. And it's just a transition, I believe. The spirit doesn't die. The intellect doesn't die. The connection doesn't die because we just go back to where we came from, and we were a creation here. And I believe we're actually singled out to do certain work. How about that? Is that is that accurate?
You're absolutely right. The difference is where you use the word belief. In my case, I would say knowledge. I know for a fact. For instance, now let me give you an example. This is something that takes 1 minute for anybody who wants to do it. I'm an instant liar if it doesn't work. In the AED, the anointed, the elected, the damned.com, spell it all out, or go to the Archurians and get the book cover. It tells you exactly how to have instant clairvoyance. Now, most people don't know what clairvoyance means. The 2 words mean clear vision. But actually it means the ability to look into the spiritual realms. You've got to have your third eye, your mind's eye, if you want to call it that, open, because we're under the delusion that we have 3 eyes, but you really don't see with your eyeballs, you see through them. That's a big difference. But in the book, it tells you exactly how to open your third eye, so that you, with practice, like everything else, you can actually see into the plains of heaven and into the depths of hell. Clairvoyance. Show me a hallelujah half-wit preacher that even wants you to do that, because then you can look into his soul and see what a liar he is. It's that simple. And the book will teach you how to do it in 1 minute. Think about it. We've got all this colleges and Oxford, and they come out with a bunch of robes and all this poppycock, and people sending money to a man sitting on a golden throne, and then wonder why their life is a hell from one end to the other. It's because they are putting their faith somewhere outside themselves instead of in their own abilities. Because when you learn clairvoyance, no one is telling you what to see. No one is painting a picture that looks like this so you can call it that. This is something you can see for yourself. And that strips anyone else of power over your mind or influence. And that's what these people want. They want total control of everything about you. With government intrusions right now, it's only a matter of time that you'll have to get permission to go to the bathroom because they're going to lock the water down so you can't flush it if you don't. That's on the clock. That's what a smart meter is about. And if you don't have spiritual ability to see that for the demonism that it is, then you damn well deserve to be its servant and enslaved by it.
In other words, if you don't wake up, folks, you're going to get the government you deserve.
That's exactly what's
You know, I've told people, Bobby, I said I've talked to God. I've seen God on a regular basis. He don't look nothing like Charlton Heston.
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And as long as you'll put up with the so-called government telling you what you can think and when, you have to realize then that you have willfully accepted what I call the ultimate height of infinite stupidity. Let's take gun control. It's always gone out. John Kennedy was supposedly shot with a 9-rocker rifle, an Italian built. There's only one problem. The one that blew his head completely apart has a problem with it because 9-rocker ammunition does not have an explosive warhead in it, and that's what blew his head up. Okay. But it got 20,000 gun control laws passed, all in violation of the Constitution. Okay? Now, let's bring it forward. This is part of a news release that I put out in September 2013 about Chicago. Okay? Now, let me just give you part of this. It says, today's media is overflowing like a plugged toilet with suggestion that Illinois Governor Patrick Joseph Quinn III, Democrat, considers sending the Illinois National Guard into the black south side of Chicago ghetto to put a stop to the violence created when firearms were outlawed from the citizens who lived there. Uptown Chicago isn't any improvement once the sun sets. Is an identical state of emergency to be declared for the entire city under protection of Comrade Mayor Rahm Emanuel? Pound for pound, violence by the armed against the unarmed in loose supposedly richer regions is identical, victim for victim, race for race, and body for body. Nothing new there. It's the same within each and every gun-free zone anywhere in the world. Now think about that. The answer to gun violence is to send in armed troops. Honest law-abiding citizens can't be trusted with firearms to protect themselves. They must be criminalized for having the means of self-defense and protected by an armed government. And that's about as intelligent as taking a bath in a mud puddle.
Well, I somewhere here, I'm not sure I can find it on in the spur of the moment, but somebody did a study about gun violence and gun deaths, and the most gun violence in our states were in the states that had the most stringent gun laws.
That's right. Every high crime area, every high crime city, of which Washington, D.C. is one.
Yes.
All are supposed gun-free zones. Against the law to have a gun. You can't carry it and all this. But you notice all these hypocrites have them. Most of the gun controllers are running around armed. They have armed guards and so forth. It's not firepower on them. They just don't want you to have it. Because the moment you can shoot back, they don't have the guts to shoot at you to start with. It's as simple as that. In the AED, you'll find a statement, and it's very true. It says, Step 1, gun control. Step 2, slavery. Very simple.
That's right. Matter of fact, I read every science fiction book in the Fort Worth Public Library before I was 17 years old. And actually before I was 14, but Robert A. Heinlein had one little short story that I really loved about an armed society being a polite society.
That's true. It's not only a polite society, it's a more honest society. It's amazing what a half a pound of gunpowder and a pocket full of shot will do to a merchant that otherwise would rob you blind. It's amazing how honest he can be when he knows you're going to show up and turn him inside out. It's amazing how honest they can be. And making a fair profit there's nothing wrong with. But deliberately selling bad food, bad equipment, and everything else, and then locking the doors and calling the police when you go back and try to get your money for what was sold to you knowingly as an inferior or inoperable object. Now they want you to go to court. Well, the black-robed bastards on the benches are the problem, not the solution. And you'll note that every time one of these gun episodes comes up, cops or otherwise, every time government investigates government, government is always innocent of any criminality. Always. That's 1,000. But when the citizens show up like they did at Bundy Ranch, asking why in the hell the Bureau of the Land Management would be there with armored vehicles and armed Gestapo, tasering everybody in sight. I wish they'd have tried to taser me. I'd have blown his goddamn head off. And I'm fast enough and deadly enough with a pistol in either hand with a track record to match to show you that I can and will do it because I've done it before. And that's the only language that punk element, even on government payroll, actually understands.
Well, you know, probably for the first time in 20 years, Bobby, you know, the ADL tried to demonize me for starting the militias in New Mexico.
Yes, I know, I was there when they did it.
You were there. You were there. What they don't tell people is that I started the militia in Governor Gary Johnson's office. He came to my house. We weren't a terrorist organization at all. We were there to work for him. And
yes.
what I started back then, what they give me credit for starting, I didn't start it. J.B. Campbell, Bruce Campbell probably did it before me for a totally different reason, maybe. But he, we started the militias, and now even the mainstream news is saying that the militia protected by the Bundys, while the Oath Keepers, another Jewish-run patriot organization to sell you T-shirts and get your money. Stuart Rhodes would never come on my show as you're coming on right now because he's Jewish. And matter of fact, that brings another thing that I'd like your comments on. Operation American Spring. I promoted that. I devoted the whole month of April to promoting the May 18th Operation American Spring. I like the idea of 10 million people going to Washington, D.C. at the last Muslim march, where they were supposed to have 1 million Muslims show up in Washington, D.C. 24 showed up. 1 million bikers showed up. And you know what I ride. You know what I ride. And there was, well, you can't do that. You don't have a permit. They have a permit. We don't need no stinking permit. Try to stop us.
Territory, including all those monuments, belong to us.
That's right, and it was the militias and the bikers that took down those barricades at the monuments when they tried to close them down.
Yep.
And we surrounded the snipers that the government put in there and put our own in there, and so that suddenly they decided they might want to stand down. And all they tried to do is demonize Sheriff Mack, who happens to be a friend of mine, for saying something about putting the women on the front line. Why shouldn't the women be on the front line? We put them on the front line in Iraq. We put them on the front line in Afghanistan. You know, why not put them in there? You want to shoot women? Coward,
we have
you coward.
On the front line in Korea, too, as nurses. A lot of them were in medevac. They were right up there where the fun started. And they, just like everybody else, they stood their ground and they did their job, and they did it as damn well as it could have been done.
Now,
but, you know, come on.
The others, you know, they've tried to demonize the militia, and you probably remember the presidential candidate that I worked with, Charles Collins.
Yes.
Nobody ever probably heard about Charles Collins. Nobody I know heard of Charles Collins that hadn't been around for 20 years. That he wanted to remove the Federal Reserve. He wanted to restore constitutional money, just like Kennedy did with the Executive Order 1110. We were in college, and by the way, every Republican convention that we went to, every Republican caucus that we went to, when Charles got up to speak, every cameraman on stage turned the cameras off and pointed them at the ground.
Yep.
And they didn't want you to hear me, so my show had been blocked in libraries. My show had been blocked in Intel and Intuit. Hell, you can't even go into Office Depot and turn on a computer and see the Free American there. Now, they're doing the same thing to you. That's one of the... You sent me an email, so that's why I wanted to have you on my show here today. They're trying to block you because what you're telling people is exactly what I'm telling people, what Jesus told people, or Yeshua, whatever you want to call him.
Right. Yeah,
God's within you.
Nothing new. We're repeating history, and if you don't pay attention to history, you're going to repeat it, and we're standing neck deep in a repetition. Because we're saying the same thing the prophets said. We're telling them who the liars are, who the thieves are, where they are, and how to find them by simply looking at them. And we're being stonewalled for it, just like those people were.
Yeah, they don't, and this whole Operation American Spring, interesting what happened on that. Captain Harry Riley supposedly wants 10 million people to go to Washington, D.C. Yeah, I think that's a good thing. But Harry Riley was scheduled to be on my show the 18th of this month, and he canceled. Wouldn't come on my show. And here's what he said. I'm getting complaints about Clayton Douglas' show and his hate Jew rhetoric. I need to get a message to all OAS members who are appearing on his show. To be clear, OAS will not be involved in a message of hatred toward Jews or anyone else. Alert our radio participants that if he engages in this rhetoric while they are on the show, to disengage without further participation. Can you either send this to our members or send me the names and email addresses of our members so I can direct them? This is urgent. Please respond.
Well, you see, he's the damn liar playing ignorance. He's a bald-faced, known liar, and I'll be happy to document within the next 1 minute. First thing, when you talk about Jews, per se, are you talking about the Israelite tribe of Judah, or the Jews that want to be Jews, called the Khazars and Ashkenazis? It's also in the book of Revelation.
Are you talking, now let me clarify this, because I believe you're talking about my ancestors that crossed the Caucasus Mountains, turned left, and went into Germany, and forgot who they were, just like the Bible said. They forgot who they were, yeah. That they were the original tribe of Judah, and there's probably a few left over there in Palestine. I believe they call them Palestinians now, and call them terrorists.
Well, the first great Exodus was 10.5 tribes of Israel. The 10 tribes of Israel and half the tribe of Benjamin. That was, those are Israelites. The Jews that were left, the tribe of Judah, Levi, the priestly tribe, and a half tribe of Benjamin, suddenly all became Jews because the king was a Jew. But that is not the Jews we're talking about. No. We're talking about the Khazars, those who say they are Jews and are not. Those are Nazis. And if you take the word Kak, K-A-K, it's a short Hebrew term. Buddy Mack taught it to me way back in 1941 and 42. He said the word Kak is a word in Hebrew, but there are no words in any language sadly enough to describe. So when you hear an Israeli call someone a Kak Jew, he's not talking about someone in the tribe of Judah. He's talking about the fake and phony Jew, just like you are. The only problem I have with Judah is that the real Jews do not call the Kaks into account. That makes them accessories to and after the fact. And if the Kak fits them, so be it. Let them wear it proudly. They earned it. But anti-Semitic, hey, I've known you for over 20 years. You're not anti-anything except damn lies, violence, and corruption.
That's right. I don't like bullies, I don't like liars, and I don't like thieves. I don't hate them. I don't hate them. I will stop them. I will stop them. I'll just put them out of their misery. That's all.
That's the game. And I know that doesn't make either one of us very popular, but you can see the grief all over me. I shouldn't stay in mourning like this. Because the truth is the truth. And anyone that wants to check the truth will have to come to the same conclusion that you and I have, because all life experience with the truth has told us where to stand on the issue. No belief, we test it out. We use the term belief and knowledge interchangeably, and that's a mistake that the thinking person has to get away from, except when they start talking knowledge. Now they're branded as a tinfoil hat, whose history is proven to be absolutely right, and demonized. But the bottom line of the thing is, when somebody thinks and takes the time to get to the bottom of it, why is it they always say and think the same thing the same way? Because that's the way truth is. Truth doesn't vary.
You know, I tell people all the time, Bobby, don't believe anything I tell you. Check it out for yourself.
Well, I do the same thing. For instance, with the anointed, the elect, and the damned, this is something that really blows the hallelujah half-lit minds. And it upsets the preachers for no end. But anyone, and I'm talking about anyone listening to us right now, anyone and everyone, I don't care what your life circumstance is, I don't care what your race is, I don't care what your gender is, I don't care anything. The Most High Himself will testify to you personally that every word, statement, and claim, all but the typos, and there are a few of those, in the anointed, the elect, and the damned is absolute, consistently verifiable truth. Now, if the testimony of the Most High Himself to you personally isn't sufficient, then tell me what in the hell would be. And they can't bring me a bunch of belief on this one. That's knowledge. That's solid bit. And you'd better believe that is an upset of no end, and that is why every church on this planet is trying to stonewall the AED from even being read. And by the way, it's free online. The original copies now that we did, the first editions, are selling for $1,000 a piece. So somebody sees the value. But the book is free to read online. Every word of it. No charge, no follow-up, no gene test. You don't have to join this or donate that, all this poppycock. Just go up and read it. And if you do get a banner that says to read here or jump there, let me know about it. Because that's poppycock. That's a hot job.
Well, they just to make it easy for you folks, all you have to do to read it is go click on the cover on the Free American. It's on the Free American page. You might have to scroll around a little bit because I've been told my page is too long, contains too much information, and it's just overwhelming to everybody. I don't care.
Well, it does take a little long to load, and especially if the tax are in their system like they are in mine. I've got more tax Jews in my computer system than is buried on the Mount of Olives, and I'll be happy to document. But that is not the Hebrew Jews. I'm talking about tax Jews, the ones that are on government payroll, the Marxists, the communists, the fascists. Yes, there's.
You mean like the guy that's interviewing presidential candidates out of Las Vegas, Sheldon Adelson? I got a whole article and a page devoted to Sheldon Adelson, one of the world's richest Jews, and who, by the way, is being investigated by the Justice Department. Now, how far that'll go, considering the Justice Department is behind Operation, everything to control you. They're working for the bankers.
Yes.
And and the CIA is bringing all the drugs in. I'd like to talk to you about that. I've said, one of my statements here is tear down that wall between us and Mexico. They're putting it up to keep us in. They're certainly not keeping the illegals out. And they are, if you tore down that wall and replaced it with tables and let the Peruvians, the Colombians, the Mexicans bring all their drugs up, lay them on the table and pay a duty on it, and let Americans go down without fear of going to prison to work for IBM for 25 cents an hour. Let them take all the cocaine, all the heroin, all the pot home with them. If they want to kill themselves, do it in the privacy of your own home. Stay off the streets. And I would rather see that happen than to pay $50,000 a year to a private prison system to keep them locked up, keep them fed, keep them clothed. That's insanity to me.
Well, it is. But, you know, if you go to take a few minutes, it doesn't take very many, and you can do a quick search, because they don't know they have to hide this yet, and you find out which country most of the illegal immigrants are coming in from. And there's Colombia, Nicaragua, a bunch of them. Central America, all over the place, Mexico. Then you go back and check the government. What kind of government is running these countries? Every one of them is a Marxist. Marxist, communist, socialist, and anyone that says democratic is a liar, and there's nothing with democracy about it at all. It's all communist, and that's a short term for progressive, socialists, and all the rest of them. If you go look at all those countries that people are trying to get into the United States from, they are Marxists. Why? Because they're starving to death there, because socialism does not work. When they had all the so-called mutual holding, every citizen in Russia had as much value in the government as everybody else did. No separations. And they folded after 75, 80 years or whatever of Lenin, Marx, and all that idiocies. The citizens of Russia, when they split up what the government was actually worth, was less than $300 American after 70 years. What happened? Well, first thing was a damn lie from start to finish. That's what happened. Second thing, the people were enslaved and had no way to account for it. And as soon as the Russian government supposedly fell, which was a false flag, it was a hype job, these people were left in abject poverty. What had happened to all their gold? What had happened to everything that they had bought and paid for, that they were supposedly equal owners in? It was bull.
Probably the same thing that happened to all the gold in Fort Knox.
Yeah, that hasn't been there in years.
Yep.
Harry Truman, as president. Harry Truman, I heard the broadcast when he said the United States is broke and there's no gold in Fort Knox. That was the gist of what he put down.
Now wasn't that after
was president?
Wasn't that after Franklin Delano, the Jew Roosevelt, took the gold from Americans, paid them $16 an ounce, made it a crime to own gold anymore, turned it into the banks, and pledged the American people as collateral to a non-existent, fictitious debt to the bankers. And we've been under that system since 1933, March 7th.
Yes. That's exactly the situation. That's the history on it.
You know, how many people high in office and in business have said if the American people knew what was really going on, there'd be a revolution overnight.
There would be a bloodbath. One we're going to get anyhow if we don't get the Marxists out of government. See, since Marxists are all anti-capitalist, they don't believe in free enterprise. The way to get rid of them is to deprive them of the very money that they don't want anyhow. That'll get rid of them. Quit donating to these people. Quit supporting them. Quit buying from them.
What are my biggest pet peeves here? Since I've been in the presidential elections, traveled coast to coast with a presidential candidate, is that last year we donated, the American people donated $1 billion, give or take a few million here and there, to the two Communist parties, the Republicans and the Democrats. Now, where did that money go? We didn't hear anything on television. We didn't hear anything in the newspapers about our former governor, Gary Johnson, who would legalize marijuana in a heartbeat, who would have stopped this whole police state thing. We didn't hear about him. We heard about Songbird McCain and Barack, born in Kenya, Obama.
Mm-hmm.
We never. So all of that. Where'd that money go? It went to the media companies that are basically keeping you programmed. I keep telling people they don't call television programming for nothing.
That's right. It doesn't mean when the program comes on. It means the content of the program. I know. I'm an old radio and television man. I go back more years in broadcast than most people have alive. I went on the radio the first time and remained consistent since December 5th, 1942. I went on WMMN Fairmont, West Virginia, as a performance with the Sagebrush Roundup. Colleen and Donna Wilson, that were the Beaver Valley Sweethearts then, that were later the Wilson sisters at WLS Chicago, held me up in their arms, and the three of us sang "I'll Be All Smiles Tonight." Now, that's all documented, and I've been in broadcasting ever since.
Did you get to
when it was Channel 1?
You were in the country music business. Did you get to meet Hank?
Oh yes, there's a picture on our website of me and Hank Williams. We're standing in the back room, or in backstage actually, of the Ryman Auditorium, and Hank and I are shaking hands. And I'm a kid, and of course he's full grown. And if you look at our hats are exactly the same size brim. You know those big hats that I wear all the time?
Yeah.
It's online. I don't know if I can get the exact URL up on it or not, but I will try.
Now, I've got links to the Archurians up on my website, so... And it will stay up there, Bobby. It will stay up there.
Yeah, we're on the bulletin board. Let me see if I can find that bit for you. For anyone that wants to go look at it. I'll find the hit here in a minute while we're talking. But yes, I knew all of those artists. I did shows with them. Red Belly, the Negro folk singer that wrote Irene Goodnight, Yellow Rose of Texas, House of the Rising Sun, a bunch of them that he lost simply because he was trying to play his way out of jail, is the guy that taught me to play guitar.
All right.
Yes, and Buddy Mack, whose right name was Horovitz Vermillion McGinnis. And yes, he was a Jew, but he wasn't an Ashkenazi. He was Hebrew, and he'd damn quick tell you. big claim to fame was that he was Ted Mack's younger brother and had been literally excommunicated, or whatever they call it, from the family because he wouldn't go along with all that poppycock. He just wouldn't do it. And needless to say, that did not help, because he had a streak of honesty about him. And when he wouldn't play all that silly nonsense, he was thrown out of the family because he wouldn't play any of it. But he did manage me. He managed Colleen and Donna Wilson, and they were the female half of a great recording of the area, Billy Vaughn, that later ran Dot Records and had the saxophones and what have you, had a singing group at the time called the Pine Toppers. And Colleen and Donna Wilson were the female half of that singing group that recorded the mega hit Mockingbird Hill. It's all there in history. Those were the people that I was raised with and taught with. And it's there. So when they start telling you what programming is and radio and everything else, have them talk to me about it, because I have no qualms about calling them the damn liar they are. And there's no two questions about the fact, absolutely none, that programming is about the content, not the scheduling. An orangutan can say, we need to put an hour in here.
The books I wrote 45 years ago, my hero, my character Solomon, came into existence and took over. He became a very wealthy man and took over the programming in Hollywood, started making movies that really woke people up. Won't happen. It ain't happening now. I mean, the militia's always the bad guy in the Steven Seagal movies. You know, even the dark side, the dark force, is behind the so-called Jews that are producing the Star Wars movies and all that. Occasionally, they get a little bit close to the truth, like the Matrix. You know, but it still doesn't dawn on people that it ain't all fiction here. This is really happening, and this world is enslaved. And we actually may have been bred to be slaves. They needed us to grow those drugs. Every one of those pyramids we can't build today are in a prime drug-producing area today, and you know, it's the civilization, the cities in Africa, South Africa, and I got a guy I've had on my show that's running for office under the Ubuntu party in Africa to get the bankers out of South Africa that took over after they kicked the whites out of Africa. Another communist movement.
Yep, and turned it into the world's largest crime zone.
Murdering the families. Now, Bobby, I also have told people, Phil from Canada wanted to know, he pointed out a couple of things. Let's kind of bring him into this conversation here. He said that Harry Solomon Truman was a 33rd degree Mason, and I had a father-in-law by the name of, well, I won't even name his name, but he was the Marine colonel that escorted the surviving alien from Roswell to Truman's office. Said Truman threw him into the basement of the Pentagon and decided he was a threat. But he also, Phil from Canada, said, did you know Jerry Abbott? Name doesn't ring a bell to me, but I thought I'd ask you for him.
No, the name doesn't ring a bell with me either.
Okay.
Of course, that doesn't mean that it wasn't there or wasn't real.
Okay, hang on.
Media tell you. Are you frustrated with your elected politicians? Get the news behind the news at truthradio.com. At Truth Radio, you can listen live or listen to a large selection of archived programs on demand. Listen when you want to. truthradio.com. The truth is out there. All you have to do is open your mind and listen.
All right. Phil says he was a country music musician and producer. But guess we got a few of them out there. Now,
oh, there's a bunch of those. But there was a bunch of them that were never widely publicly known that were some of the best in the business. Bob Ferguson in Nashville was probably the premier record producer when it came down to quality of product. His technology, everything was just right where it ought to be. The correct way, instead of getting in there and blasting off incoherently. Bob Ferguson, and most people never heard of his name outside of Nashville. But no one in their right mind would have cut a session without Bob Ferguson if he were available.
all right, let me lead you down a few more paths. I mentioned the surviving alien, they called him Eve, extraterrestrial biological entity. And I said one of the reasons I believe that the UFO program is so top secret that they don't want you to know that we could have lunch on the moon, be back here in time for supper, and never use a drop of gasoline.
That's true.
Now, one of the things, also, in that vein, talking about the energy systems, and I want to, I'll mention chemtrails in a moment or two, because they are poisoning us. The aluminum, you can't eat the snow on Mount Rainier or Mount Shasta because it's been poisoned by aluminum. They got signs up on the mountain telling you don't eat the white snow. Yellow snow might be better for you. This whole UFO thing, they've got the energy, and I've said Obama's idea of greening America is to sell the top of that mountain or the Bundy Ranch to a Chinese firm so they can put up windmills and plates of glass to collect the sunlight.
Yeah.
So they can sell it to the energy.
Cattle would crush the tortoise and the eggs, but a D9 dose wouldn't.
That's right. That's right. So this whole they want to pipe that power over to the power company, so the power company can sell it to you and charge you a little bit more for that green energy. And we've talked about the Monsanto is selling you poison foods. Rats won't eat the genetically modified corn, but it's okay for your children to eat it.
Yeah.
And so they're starving us to death, and they're milking us dry by charging us for inferior products. Why not? Why not? And now another friend of mine who I've had on my show over the years, Richard Kelly Hoskins. And if you happen to be listening to this, Richard, I don't hold it against you for introducing me to my ex-wife, one of my ex-wives, so I don't hold that against you. But if we grew our own food in the backyard instead of grass, and we put solar on our roof, we can recreate the foundation of every civilization, which is the self-sufficient family farm. This whole country was pretty much established by farmers with windmills growing their own food, and then you got the traders and the immigrants that came in and settled the town and opened the shops, and The whole country was built on self-sufficient family farms. Now, if we did that in one neighborhood, in one block, and started growing food instead of grass, and put solar and wind on our roofs, we cut out the middlemen. We don't need the power companies. We don't need the food companies. And there is positive progress on this whole corporate farms, which is the 9th plank on the Communist Manifesto.
Mm-hmm.
There is a company called Bright Farms that'll be featured in my next Free American magazine, the May issue of the Free American, that is contracting with grocery stores, grocery store chains, to put greenhouses on their roof and grow chemical-free, pesticide-free food that you can buy and take home and eat the day it's picked. And no gasoline is needed to deliver it to the market.
Yep.
You can do the same thing in your backyard. My grandmother did it. I used to go visit my grandmother and my grandfather in Weatherford, Texas. We'd walk a block to the farmer's market to get watermelons, and then we'd go back and eat lettuce and tomatoes that my grandmother grew. Best food I ever had.
I remember as a child growing up in West Virginia when you could take a salt shaker and go out in the garden, and the most that you had to put up with was to shake a bug off that was 96% of which are beneficial. Most people don't know that. But you could pick a cucumber or tomato or pull an onion or whatever and eat it right there. There were no pesticides, none of that nonsense on it to poison it. And if you let the best crop grow, that's where you got your seed for next year's planting. You took the best plant and let it grow up, and when it went to seed, you kept the seeds. But you could eat an ear of corn out of the fields. I've eaten many a raw ear of corn. A little salt, that was it. That was the best we decided to do with them. Just a little salt and eat it right out of the garden. You didn't have to wash it off. You didn't have to cook it. You didn't have to sterilize it and process it and all of this fumigation and nonsense. All you had to do was pick it and eat it. Of course, in the right time of the year, you also had to get off your duff and get out in the garden, do a little bit of plowing and planting, and a little watering on occasion. But they want to outlaw you being able to do that in your own backyard right now. They actually don't want you to be sufficient at all about anything.
That's right. Monsanto has patented Mother Nature and made it illegal to use the seed because you're violating the patent. Then you have to buy seed every year. No, their motto, unwritten motto, is no food we don't own.
Yeah.
and that's the same people, that's the same company, the same people that gave us Agent Orange, gave us Roundup, gave us all these poisons that we're putting on our food, and poisons that were sprayed on our soldiers, and they're still dying from that.
Yes, same company.
Same company.
Now, the bottom line of that thing is, it's about total human control. That's what the bottom line of that is. That's why you can't argue with government. Well, we're in charge. Kill 4 or 5 of them and see how quick they run for cover. And when every citizen says, you knock on my door, be prepared to die because I've already made my decision, and see how long it takes for anybody knocks, there won't be any. Because when they know that you have got a corpse account that is going to be paid in full, the moment they try it, it stops. Just like when the militias showed up at Bundy Ranch. everybody there wasn't unarmed. They were ready to give blood if it was going to be pushed. And the government had enough sense, which was surprising them, to get out of that chute scrape. Now, if they're going to do that on Bundy Ranch, which is all a damn lie, from start to finish, they wanted that land so Harry Reid could get a ton of gold out of China to build a solar manufacturing plant. That was the truth about it. If they want to interrupt then you having a solar unit on your list to raise your own food, pray tell me who the hell the market is going to be for the solar panels that Harry Reid wanted to have the Chinese build there. Who's going to buy them?
You know what? I've got a little device. I don't really make any money on it. I've just got it on my website because it makes sense. It's called a juice box. And it's a little box about the size of one of those old compact computers that we started out on, the first portable computers out there. It's got solar panels that unfold, and it's got a battery in it, and it will power your computer, it'll power your modem. I could do this whole show and strap this juice box on the back of my Harley, put one of these little fold-up beach canvas things that provides you some shade there on the beach, and I could have lights, I could have the computer, I can have the telephone, I can charge my cell phone, I can charge my computer, and I don't have to pay General Electric a dime. Not a dime.
And that right there is the chink in the armor that shows you what this thing is really all about. They don't want you free of General Electric or anybody else of the big corporates.
Now I still got
to dependent on them.
I still got to put gas in the Harley, but that gets a little over 30 miles to the gallon. And Bobby, they have China has just announced a little Volkswagen that gets almost 200 miles to the gallon. My friend Paul Pantone builds a Geek carburetor that will get well over 50 miles a gallon. He just can't advertise that because it's against the law to build a car in America, bring a car in America that gets over 50 miles to the gallon.
Yeah, that's true. And let me tell you another one right on top of that. For those that think this is just simple, there's a thing called sun gas. Now it's made with solar energy. All it is concentrated sunlight, per se. A little more technology on it, but it's small enough to be portable. And what it does, it turns ordinary water, H2O, ordinary water, into fuel so that you can burn it, which turns it back into water. Most people don't know that if you take hydrogen and oxygen and you burn it, it makes water. Now, if you take this unit, put it on top of your car, and you've got a car with gallons of water, or however the system would be, you can literally drive forever without ever buying a drop of gasoline or paying anybody for electricity.
The U.S. Navy... I
guarantee you they don't want that information out.
The U.S. Navy has now set up, they're putting converters on their ships that will take the seawater that they're floating on in and convert it to hydrogen, and so we can cross oceans without spending a dime for gasoline.
That's right.
And if you really want gasoline, I need gasoline for this Harley, but you can set up in your backyard a little distillery out of plastic tubing. You can run water through that with a solar pump, and you put algae in it.
Mm-hmm.
Algae is the fastest growing plant out there. And if you take that pond scum that just floats around, and you can convert it into a hydrocarbon, you convert it, and you can make diesel out of it. You can make biodiesel, or you can make gasoline out of it.
Yep.
So
you literally make more than you would ever need to use.
What's that?
I said you could make more than you would ever really need to use.
That's
you
right.
have an infinite supply.
That's right. And all that can be done in a simple little solar refinery in your backyard.
Right. So when the sun is down, you needn't worry about it because the algae is still there.
That's right.
That's the same thing with the solar or the sun gas. You make enough sun gas at any given time. The only thing the thing would do after you got it started is top off the tanks when the sun comes out. Because you're not going to burn that much fuel, even running wide open 24 hours a day with a properly built engine. So you're going to have a system that doesn't do anything but top off the tanks the moment the sun gets it.
Paul Pantone invented the GEAT device. I met him over 20 years ago, about 25 years ago, and he said he could. That would convert. You certainly get better than 50 miles a gallon using the GEAT device. You can put Mountain Dew in it, but the Mountain Dew is more expensive than the gasoline, so that don't make a lot of sense. But it will convert. It'll run on water. The GEAT device will break the water down. And, of course, they put him in an insane asylum for 3.5 years. Took me 3.5 years. Took us 3.5 years to get him out.
Yeah. Well, it's another...
One other father-in-law, quick little story here. My other father-in-law, his name was Sheriff Babcock. Sheriff was his first name, not his title. He worked on the Aswan Dam, and he could just fix anything. Had a truck, and he built a Pogue carburetor and put it on his truck, and was building one for my other father-in-law, who was Colonel Lloyd Conrad, a man that escorted the alien from Roswell to Truman's office. And two guys in blue pinstripe suits showed up. Hey, Mr. Babcock, listen, we need you to take that carburetor off of your truck there and destroy it. And the one that you're building for your neighbor there, Colonel Conrad, we need you to take that off too and destroy that. Yeah, what happens if I don't? We'll kill you. He said I believed him.
Well, he was right. He should have, because that's what they'd have done.
Yes. And Colonel Lloyd Conrad, after he backed over my mailbox, he called me up and said, "You're a real popular guy there, Clay." I said, What do you mean, Lloyd? He says, the men in black showed up, wanted to know what I was doing visiting Clay Douglas. I said, "What'd you tell him?" He said, "I told him I had to. You were my son-in-law." And a year later, he was dead. So they killed both my father-in-laws, I guess, or either that or it was just old age. They'd been around for a while. Don't want to get too paranoid here, but obviously back in 2004, and you're there, I was doing pretty well. I had the Free American going out of New Mexico. I had Thunder Riders going out of Arizona. And 20,000 people were reading my magazines every month. And then I put Building Number 7 on the cover of my March 2004 issue. April, two Israeli firms, Amdocs and Converse, were given a contract by the NSA to tap everybody's phones before Snowden. And mine was probably the first phone they tapped when I referred to 9/11 as an exaggerated case of Jewish lightning and put Larry Silverstein's quote about it on the thing and pointed out that the buildings had already been condemned. Engineering firms have been there for 10 years, said they couldn't be repaired, your scaffolding wouldn't go that high. And the only thing you can really do is bring them down, start over again. So the Jews and the Port Authority sold it, released it to Larry Silverstein for, I believe it was $500 million.
Something like that.
He had it for 4 months, insured it to the hilt, and planted the explosives in it, or the little baby nukes that he got from Israel, and blew them up. Or, you know, they used the same weapon that they built across the street from me over there at White Sands. They call it the airborne laser.
Yeah.
Same
well,
one
they
that
went in and painted the floors that they wanted to crack with thermite so that it would all light and go down properly.
Yep.
To drop them in their own signature. Like Building 7 never got hit by anything.
That's
but
right.
It dropped in its own signature. Ask any demolition expert how long that takes to prepare.
About 3 months.
Right.
And that airborne laser, you know, all the guys that worked there at White Sands used to stop by my store there in Bingham, smallest town still on the map, that they stole from me. Well, actually, they bought it and then kicked me off of it. They used to stop by, and I had a pass because I was in the area, the evacuation zone. They let us go on White Sands once a year. Took a tour, you know, got to see the Trinity site. That was 11 miles from my house. And I was up on this observatory on the top of that mountain across from my house, walking around, looking at all the computers. Hey boys, how many of these computers got games on them? All of them. And they bragged. I said, what is this airborne laser? I said, what can you do with that? Clay, we can hit the O in God on a dime in the hands of a running man at 50 miles.
Yeah.
And then a few months after that, the space shuttle blew up right over my house. And they said on the TV, well, it wasn't an act of terrorism because no weapon could reach that high. Excuse me? The range on this airborne laser is a little over 200 miles. They can use it to bring satellites down. And that was a joint Israeli-U.S. project.
Yep.
So what hit that oil platform? That purple beam that hit that oil platform? Again, an attack on our food supply.
Yep.
An attack on our industry.
When you begin putting it all together, it suddenly starts take a bunch of little dots and say, where the hell does this fit? If you get enough dots, they'll start fitting themselves, and that brings out the truth. And that's why they got to put the hammer to sites like yours and sites like mine. Yeah, I have an email list for news. It is nearly 200,000 names, and they don't like that when I send out a news release. So they do everything they can to hack the systems and slow it down. I was going to put out a news release when I first got their attention about marijuana. As you know, a friend of ours, Gary Johnson, we're both friends of his.
Yes.
And have been for many years, wanted to legalize marijuana. And the only thing he really asked at the time, when he was governor, was to put it on the table. He didn't say anything one way or another. He just said put it on the table. And Darren White, that was his commissioner of police or whatever it was, resigned. Well, Darren White's only got one problem. When he dies, they're going to have to figure out how to screw him into the ground. But Gary had it right, because everything that you hear is demonized. Marijuana, what do they show you? A burnt-out hippie. Every time. Never fails. But what they don't tell you, the sails on Columbus's ships was made out of hemp.
Our Constitution, written on hemp.
On hemp.
Our flag, made out of hemp. Blue jeans.
that was at Fort Sumter and the flag that was at Fort Moultrie were all hemp. When they fired on the Stars and Stripes, that flag was made out of hemp. The sails on the USS Constitution, the old Ironsides, was made out of hemp. And what they don't want to tell you is that if you take ordinary marijuana seed, just shake it off of the bush, and you crush it, it's 80% oil that will burn without any carburetor adjustments at all in your automobile, gas-powered, in a diesel-powered truck, or in a jet engine. Now, granted, if you set the carburation a little bit, you'll get a better service out of it. And it has no carbon dioxide or monoxide side effects when it burns. So they don't want that oil coming out of hemp seed that you can grow for yourself. And if you've got soil that is totaled, which most of it is in the United States anymore, and you plant hemp on it, ordinary marijuana, in 3 years, it'll be restored and you can raise anything back in that soil again.
That's right.
You can put it in you can go to the concrete supply and buy a box of sand. We're talking about pre-washed, clean sand to be used in the best construction that we can make concrete out of. And plant it with marijuana, and marijuana will grow. And in 3 years, you can plant anything in that box of sand. Now, tell me what side of that coin is it that the one world government people don't want you to know. That's why they drag out the hippie.
Well,
you know, come on.
And we, by the way, us hippies, well, I wasn't quite a hippie. I would go to the park on the Harley with my friends and pull up a few of the football players and jocks, say, hey, buddy, I got long hair, I smoke marijuana, want to fuck with me? You boys better leave this park right now. and I financed a Jew by the name of Jack Hara, who was my friend, had some bad habits, had some flaws, but he did the research while I set him up in a head shop in Van Nuys, California, to write The Emperor Wears No Clothes. My friend Clark Jones did the first editing on his book. And The Emperor Wears No Clothes is now available free. Jack died, or they killed him, a few years back, but The Emperor Wears No Clothes is the best history of marijuana. Tells you why William Randolph Hearst, who owned all of the lumber companies that were cutting down all the trees to make the paper, and it gives you an insight into how he earned that the money to get that castle on top of the coast there on the mountaintop in the Hearst Castle in California, because Rockefeller's oil went to DuPont, who had the patent on nylon and rayon that replaced all those hemp ropes, the tons of hemp ropes that were on the USS Constitution, replaced them with nylon, rayon, and that's why I now publish my magazine. I don't spend a dime on, I used to spend $4,000 a month on Hearst paper. I used to, part of that cost, I guess, went to DuPont Inc., and now I publish the Free American online. You can buy it for $2.99, which is $2 cheaper than it was in the Barnes & Noble and Books A Million, if they knew about it. But nobody knows about it. Nobody goes to my site. Everybody's blocked in the libraries, blocked in Intel and Intuit. They want you to think it's a porno site. Probably because I've got the I did the same thing that Henry Ford did with every Ford, which, by the way, ran on alcohol just as easily as it does gasoline. And every Ford contained a copy of the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. You can read the Protocols of the Elders of Zion on my site. And now you can read your book on there. And I just put up the 5 great things on my Facebook page, which is Free American 69. I put up the 5 great things that happened since weed was legalized in Colorado. Click on that, and immediately I got somebody coming on the site within 10 minutes after they came on the site that said the claims for this are a bit early. The tobacco is still touted as a medicinal value well into the 1900s. Other claims are rather specious. There has never been historical claims of the greatness of marijuana. Let's give it 5 years. I replied to that. I gave it 50 years, and I'm healthier at 67 today than most Americans. And it was America's #1 cash crop 100 years ago. Don't care to be friends with stupid people. He is history. Now, let me speak about this. The Amendment 64, Bill made this all possible. And actually, what else I said in there is why the real question is, why aren't we doing this in every state? It's only happening right now in Colorado, in Washington, and possibly Alaska. The opponents prophesied that the evil weed was the work of the devil, and that the lovely state of Colorado would immediately become a cesspool of crime, sleaziness, and drug-induced hysteria. Of course, those even with the smallest inkling of sanity saw the ridiculousness of their sentiments and paid them no mind. Clearly, life as we know it has continued, and as you're about to see, Colorado is actually better off for having legalized this much too often and unfairly demonized plants. Crime rates have fallen significantly. Burglary, larceny, theft from a motor vehicle, auto theft, and arson dropped by about 14.6% compared to the same period in 2013. Violent crimes, homicide, sexual assault, robbery, aggravated assault were down by 2.4%. Now, this could all be just a coincidence. However, let's be real here. We know the effects of marijuana tend to overwhelmingly be calming and relaxing, as opposed to the more aggressive reactions elicited from alcohol or similar drugs. Bobby, when I was in the hospital, they dosed me for 3 months on morphine, Halcyon, Haldol, and Valium. And they said, boy, you are one mean motherfucker. Boy, you pull pictures off the walls and beat us over the head with it. I said, that should have been a clue to you. You had me on the wrong medication. I almost killed the first guy that gave me a Valium. And 2, tax revenue has increased. Based on $1 million in sales on January 1st alone, state officials predict around $578 million for sales in 2014, along with $67 million in tax revenues. And now, number 3, there's less arrests for possession, so cops can direct their attention elsewhere. Colorado police arrested black people for marijuana possession at more than 3 times the rate they arrested white people, even though white people use marijuana at higher rates. And the situation is exceptionally bad in Denver, where almost 1/3 of the people arrested for private adult possession of marijuana are black, though black folks account for only 11% of this whole issue. And by the way, when Cleveland Bundy made the comment about blacks and slavery, well, he's just telling you the same thing I'm telling you. They refined the art of slavery to the point the slave don't know they're slaves. The blacks are enslaved. We're enslaved, and we don't know it. And there's nobody more enslaved than someone who falsely believes himself to be free. And
that's right.
Third, the health benefits. The Montana. One must ask: Will alcohol use increase in line with marijuana use as a complement, or will marijuana be used as a substitute for alcohol? Are the two substances completely unrelated? If marijuana proves to be a substitute for liquor, the healthcare system will truly see the benefits of this change. The World Health Organization reports that alcohol results in $2.5 million deaths each year worldwide, not to mention the additional physical, psychological, and social issues addressed with it. And we all know that not a single case of a death being directly attributed to and caused by marijuana exists in known human history. Bobby, I have been smoking marijuana for 45 years. I wrote my first books in prison doing time for possession of marijuana 45 years ago. And I'm 67 years old. I was kind of excited when Arizona passed medical marijuana. I said, "Wow, maybe I won't be a criminal anymore. Now I can get some pot, smoke some pot, and not be a criminal anymore." But guess what? I couldn't get it because A, I'm too damn healthy. I refuse to bribe a doctor to give me a prescription for something God gave me. And I still got my tonsils, I still got my appendix, I got no trace of cancer, I don't even get a friggin' cold, so I'm too healthy to get medical marijuana, because I've been smoking it for 45 years, folks. And this idiot that comes on Facebook, well, we don't have any benefit. I've been smoking for 45 years. You find another 67-year-old man that is in as good a health as I am, I'll kiss your ass.
Well, I don't smoke at all, just out of evolution per se. But they always have to demonize everything that doesn't work the way they want it. For instance, most of the alcohol, if you go to the store and buy alcohol, you will find right on the bottle where it will tell you whether that alcohol is made by a distillery process, like you would make whiskey, or whether it's made out of petrol. The alcohol that you see, or vinegar rather, that you see in the stores, you go look at the standard process on it, that vinegar, if it doesn't say that it was distilled pure apple, it's made out of alcohol. Alcohol is one of the best, quick and easy and cheapest disinfectants. They use it in hospitals by the 55-gallon drum. So alcohol being demonized, is a complete and totally bogus fight, just like marijuana is. And if you take the primary consumption of alcohol in the United States is not hard whiskey, it's beer. But if you go back and look at history, beer is a digestive. It's a food. And if you go to someplace like Mexico or Egypt, and I've been to both, you'd better drink beer or wine, because if you try the water, the fun is going to start, and it ain't going to go over in a couple of minutes. This is a short 10-minute square dance. This puppy is a real gut buster, put it mildly. So if you look at the truth again, just like you spelled it out for them, if you look at that truth, suddenly all of this idiot poppycock and programming begins to come out, you can smell it a mile away upwind. But all of the information they're getting is controlled information, and it's controlled by the same people. For instance, you were talking a while ago about GMO food. You can't take GMO corn and make adequate alcohol out of it. It won't reproduce. No hybrid will breed true. I don't care what they want to say about it. And every hybrid is short on 7 to 9 trace minerals, and none, as in zero, will pick up cobalt, which is critical to a person's life or health, nutritionally. But you have to get natural cobalt out of the natural process of life, growth, seed, food, whatever. Not the stuff that's processed to put in a bomb. We're talking about natural cobalt. If you look at any hybrid, and it won't pick up cobalt, then it's already nutritionally deficient. And I remember when we used to raise our own food, a lot of it anyhow, like we were talking a while ago, that's against the law now to do with a solar unit on your roof. When they had all of these new hybrids that were suddenly coming on, they had a bunch of tax, and that's what they were. You need this flavor enhancer, because that food didn't have any flavor. Well, that flavor enhancer, take a package of Accent, see what it is. Monosodium glutamate, MSG. Look at the effects of MSG. And these people that are idiots that will not think for themselves have been led down that very line, whether it be marijuana, alcohol, misrepresented food, and all the rest of this poppycock from one end to the other, because they will not stand up, get their guts together, and think. Because when they think for themselves, they have to do like you and I did, when we face the truth. Think about it.
Now, listen, my film, Chemtrails, the video, came out over 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, again, an attack on our food supply, attack on our water. Our water is being fluoridated. That reduces the IQ level. And I've wondered, what is going on here? What is it, the public fool system? This education system? I mean, the 10th plank on the Communist Manifesto is government control of education. They've made it into, and Dr. Jake Wade started Timothy Bible College in the Little Red Schoolhouse. He refers to it as indoctrination. I refer to it as the public fool system.
Mm-hmm.
Is it the schools, the teaching? Is it the television, the programming, or is it the fluoride in our water reducing our IQ level? What is wrong with Americans? Everything that you've said on this show, everything we've talked about today, is real, accurate, and if you use your system that you talk about, and I'd like for you to elucidate on that. You know, people say, how can we never see you in church? I said, because I can talk to God right here. I don't need to go to church. I don't need to go into that building with a Masonic cornerstone. Look at your church, folks. The Masonic cornerstone is right there in most of your churches. 501c3 corporation. Now, I gave my friend Jake a little hell about that. I said, Jake, he said, I'm a 501c3. I said, Jake, doesn't that mean that the government controls you? You can't talk about this, you can't talk about that, you can't do this, you can't do that? He said, no. I wrote my 501c3. I wrote mine. They didn't read it, they just stamped it, man, so I can do anything I want.
Simple as that.
Simple as that.
Well, the truth is going to have to come out, and when it does, there's going to be an absolute global disaster. when all the hallelujah half-wit churches, including Allahu Akbar, conversion by Montebello AA Dynamite, isn't a damn bit different than the Catholic Church converting everybody to the business end of a broadsword. When that truth comes out, there's going to be a lot of people looking for the likes of me and you to tell them what to do again. Well, we're telling you now. It's called think. Get off your dead ass and start paying attention. I don't care whether a politician said it, whether it was on radio, whether it was on television, whether it's in the newspapers. You're being lied to until you start checking this stuff for yourself and start thinking. And until then, you've got a problem. Now, you mentioned a while ago my being in broadcast, and I was for many years. It used to be a thing where it was on the radio, so was Amos and Andy, but at that time there was not one black person in that cast. They were all white. Freeman Gosden and Charles Correll did most of the voices. So just because it was on the radio is no sign of credibility, whether it be in print or anywhere else. And for those that were wondering, we mentioned a while ago, I found the picture, and all you've got to do is go to the Archurians and click on the BB site and search this. This is a quick way to do it. Anybody got an idea? And there's 5 question marks, who, apostrophe S, in the picture. And it's a picture of me and Hank Williams shaking hands in the backstage of the Ryman Auditorium. And take a good look at the hats. That's the part that'll get you. And my shirt was made by Faye Ward, Fayward. She was a big costumer today. Now, if that doesn't show you that we're telling you the truth and backing up what we say, then you're the one with the problem, not us. Clay Douglas and General Bobby Farrell are not the problem. You are. And as long as you, the citizen, will permit any hallelujah half-wit preacher, I don't give a damn what the robes are, even a towel head, or anybody on government payroll dictate to you and tell you what you can think and what you must have and what your children must think, like this Common Core bit, that you can't have a means to raise your own food or to purify your own water or generate your own electricity. If you're stupid enough to fall for that, you deserve it. And I mean right between the eyes. At the moment you'll stand and fight, you're going to be demonized. You don't think so? Check us out, if you can find us. Wherever you will find Clay Douglas or me, you'll find more hell, as we used to say, than a one-legged man at an ass kicking. Because nobody wants our truth out. And that's the problem. And when you see that stone wall, then you know you hit the right bit. From there on, you have to take it. We can't do it for you. It's your responsibility to take care of you and your possessions and your family. And if that means being in defiance of government and being armed to make it well worth a body count, then that is exactly what you're going to have to do. Because the truth is, whether anybody likes it or not, our nation, our Constitution, our Bill of Rights are going to be restored the same way they were established. The only difference is going to be the quality of powder, the caliber of shot, and the dead and injured. That is a fact. And if you're not part of it, then you're on one side or the other of the game. If you're not standing and fighting, you are a slave and too stupid to know it.
Well, I've said I am a little disgusted with the American people because I've been trying to get this information out to them for well over 20 years. And folks, you know, as you should know, my site is offered free of charge as well as these programs that we're doing right here. The fact is they are free to everyone else. Does not mean it is free to put it all together. Cost me hundreds of dollars a month, to say nothing of the time that goes into the daily news updates and radio programs that I offer to the public, at no cost to anyone but myself. I'm well aware that everyone is feeling the pinch right now in a terrible way, because these same Jews have tried to kill me and destroy the multi-million-dollar businesses I had put together in the Patriot movement before that dreadful day in May 2004. One chapter in Mystery Babylon via the available via PDF for any size donation will tell you that. And folks, anyone out there that's in a position to help with the cost associated with this worthwhile endeavor are humbly asked to do so. You can go to freeamerican.com and click on a donate button. I've got the first 11 issues of the New Free American available at no cost. The new ones, the May issue, the April issue, and the March issue, are $2.99 on shop.freeamerican.com. The Free American is the only magazine to deal forthrightly with what was called conspiracy theories 10 years ago, but are on mainstream news today, 10 years later. This interactive online magazine will be delivered to your email in a PDF format bi-weekly or monthly. The videos and the Free American radio show and TV are linked in every issue. It's the only publication to consider and examine the Jewish question without hate or prejudice. The Constitution and our Bill of Rights permits all Americans to worship as they please. We don't need wars. Read the first 11 issues of the Free American for free and share them with all your friends and family. If you appreciate the information and understand that this is the best weapon we have to oppose the New World Order, make a donation.
I second that motion. Now, I've known Clay for, what is it, Clay, at least 20 years.
At least 20 years. You were there right from the beginning. Yes, sir.
And the one thing that I can tell you about Clay Douglas, he has a similarity to me. It's still a toss-up to which of the two of us is the ugliest. But the facts are, when you go there and see something, if you can prove it wrong, we haven't seen any of that yet. If you can prove it wrong, he'll correct it. And he'll say, I made a mistake. That's the mark of an honest man. Those are rare in today's bit. And on my own bit, if the testimony of the Most High himself isn't good enough, what the hell would it be? Where do you start from there? That's the solid front that the likes of Clay and I put up to the rest of the world. And I don't care whether anybody likes it or not. This is not a popularity contest. Because if we don't take the Marxist, the communist, the fascist, the socialist, the progressives, regardless of their other banners and tags, out of this government, we are doomed. We're going to take our government back with a bloodbath. And that's what we've been saying, don't let happen mutually for 20 years. And if you're deeper in it today than you were 20 years ago, it was you that didn't listen. There's where we stand on the issue. You can find it, either one of us, very easily. We're not hidden. We're out there. Suppressed and blocked and everything, you're damn right. But we're not doing that.
Bobby, I went into a bar in Socorro, New Mexico, where I lived, the county, and the guy came up to me and said, "You're Clay Douglas, aren't you?" And I said, "Yeah, I am." He said, I recognized you when you walked in, because you put your picture in a magazine. Why do you do that? I said, because it's my magazine. Why wouldn't I do that? Well, there's people out there who don't like what you got to say. Oh, you mean there might be somebody out there that wants to beat me up, hurt me, kill me because I got an opinion, I exercised my First Amendment rights. Well, yeah. And I said, well, bud, here I am. Oh, not me, no, not me. And I said, well, now you know why I put my picture in the magazine. You know, Bobby, everywhere I've gone, from Albuquerque to Tucson to Austin, every time I go to a meeting, there's 2 or 3 people that congregate over in a corner, whispering among themselves, and they do everything possible to run me out of the meeting, to discredit me, to, my grandmother was Jewish. My grandmother was Jewish, and I don't appreciate what you got to say about the Jews. Harry Reid put out the notice that I hate Jews. No, don't do that. But when he accused me of that, I'm getting complaints about the Clayton Douglas show and his hate Jew rhetoric. I need to get a message to all OAS members who are appearing on the show to be clear that OAS will not be involved in a message of hatred towards Jews or anyone else. But what he put out in a letter to the editor about Obama, he says, please read this and share it if you're angry with the slap the abomination gave to Israel. He said, I ask everyone to write letters to editors for your local newspapers, call your local news stations. We have to speak. Silence is not an option, unless, of course, you're speaking about Israel. And he says, the final nail in the coffin occurred today as Obama declared his outright support of Palestinian terrorists and other enemies while opposing the Jewish state of Israel's right to exist. The lunatic in the White House, along with his weak, cowardly, self-serving minions, have finally created a policy that puts American leadership squarely into direct conflict with the God that created Israel and the God that fostered the foundation of the United States. Israel will not be defeated nor controlled by the lax egomaniacs such as Barack Obama, nor barbaric butchers in the Middle East. Only a fool would confront a righteous God, challenging his spiritual creation and siding with his enemies. I said, your Christian God, who the Jews killed, told you to beware of the Jews who say they're Jews but are not, of the synagogue of Satan. So it suddenly becomes obvious that Operation American Spring is an Israeli false flag intended to kill or incarcerate millions of patriotic American people. If you go, you are set up to be sacrificed.
How big a hypocrite can he be?
Well, he's working for Israel, and everything's done from all your presidents. Lyndon Baines Johnson, who almost started World War III, was within 5 minutes of dropping an atomic bomb on Egypt after Israel sunk the USS Liberty, and that's what I said right on this article that I put up by Harry Riley, praising it. Who's he working for? The America? Is he working for America? Is he worried about America? Or is he worried about Israel? I think it's pretty clear from his words. That tells you what Operation American Spring is going to be. Israel's behind it, probably the same way they were of the Egyptian Spring.
Yep. It's just happening here instead of there.
That's right. Bobby, we're out of time. God bless you. I hope we can get this message out to everybody on your email list. Everything's up there on my website. This video will be up there. This video will be up on YouTube. This video will be up on Facebook. This radio show will be up on Facebook. Free American 69. If you share this with everybody you know, folks, and up on Free American, there will be a link to Bobby's book, and that will give you an insight that is just as valuable to you today as the Bible has been over the last 2,000 years. I believe in you, Bobby. Thank you very much.
You're quite welcome, Clay. We'll do this again the first chance we get.
I will see that this in probably 2 weeks. I'd like to have you back.
Well, let's put it together and get my schedule rearranged so we can do that.
All right, sir. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Take care.
God bless.